Onassis Foundation. Dublab.
Welcome to the Quarantine Tapes, a daily podcast from Onassis, LA and Dublab. Hosted by Paul Holdengraber, this series chronicles shifting paradigms in the era of social distancing.
Greetings. This is Paul Holdengraber, your host for the Quarantine Tapes, brought to you by Onassis, LA and Dublab. I am thrilled to announce that we have asked various former Quarantine Tape guests to host during a week guests of their choice in total freedom. They have absolute carte blanche. This week, I have asked the very great poet Naomi Shihab Nye to guest host. I hope you will enjoy these Quarantine Tapes.
Hello, this is Kim Stafford.
Hi, Kim. So good to talk to you today.
Hey, Naomi, how are you?
It's wonderful that you would take the time to be with us today. Thank you, Kim.
I have all the time in the world, Naomi.
Please tell us where you're speaking to us from.
I'm in my office in my house in Portland, Oregon. It's a beautiful sunny day. I've had my walk, I've written my poem, and the rest is gravy.
Well, thank you so much for spending this little time with us. I'm so excited to hear your thoughts about a number of things. Kim, you've had such a generous, outward-leaning life for the past few years when you were Poet Laureate of the state of Oregon. And I think you went to more than 100 places to share poems.
Yeah, schools, prisons, homeless shelters, immigrant gatherings, veterans, all kinds of wonderful people hungry for poetry.
Every corner of your state.
Oh yeah, all over.
So describe the tenor and rhythm of your quarantine days in contrast.
Well, in some ways it's terrible. I'm cut off from my friends. I can't see my kids very often, except from a safe distance. I can't gather with people. In other ways, Naomi, it's like a dream come true. Selfishly, a lot of time to think, to walk, to write, to garden, and really just to ponder what the world needs. You know, I think when I became Poet Laureate a couple of years ago, my question in my mind changed from what's on my mind to write to what do people need? What do people need? You know, what do we need to be thinking about? How could I put a little poem out there that would be part of the conversation of our time? So having time in lockdown to attend to that is okay.
And you've been very productive during the time. I know for a fact that you have probably tuned into your page every single day, many times.
Yeah. And sending things forth immediately. You know, I used to let things pile up and then get around to sending them out. I feel like I should make a poem that addresses what's happening today, and then I should send it forth. So Instagram, Facebook, emails to friends, calling friends, reading poems. You know, there's just time for that kind of bounty.
You don't sit on your poems for days or months like an egg that needs some kind of long preparation, hatching period. You're very gracious about wanting a voice to go out and be heard.
Well, part of that, Naomi, is strangely the pandemic is a very busy time. This has been a huge year. Every day we're assaulted by troubles and opportunities to engage each other and to really think together for our time. So to sit on a poem to make it perfect for the ages makes no sense to me right now. I want to send it forth.
Would you share a poem from Dr. Fauci's Smile? And would you tell us about this book in particular, but this amazing series of books you've been doing? In their size and shape, they remind me of those little classic editions in the early 20th century that were like Longfellow, Tennyson, those beautiful little volumes.
Literally a pocket book. Yeah, I've been self-publishing over a dozen now of these little books to hand to people to put in their pockets. And when the pandemic came, I found myself writing in response to the news as it came out, my feelings, messages from friends, and put about 50 of those poems together in the little book, Dr. Fauci's Smile. And Naomi, here's one poem from that book, which is essentially a list. It's called What You Always Wanted. Know how you never had the time? Intentions abounded, then days passed, then months, years. But now the pandemic has a wicked way to grant your wishes. You wanted to sleep in, but the alarm called your name. Just once, no rush hour, but there you would be again, fuming, inching along at a crawl. You wanted a garden, but the season passed you by. You always wanted to play guitar, but the radio was the best you could do. You wanted to walk before dawn, meditate, write letters to friends growing older, far away. But where were those stamps? You wanted to know the birds, but they sang from hiding, their wing bars, flashes of mystery. You wanted a world-class nap, but at your cubicle at work, no way. You even wanted to try poetry, of all things. And here you are, making a list, as all around you the world hungers for visions.
Mm. Mm. Thank you so much.
I have the feeling, Naomi, when I read the news, there's so many things people are saying, but it's the things they're not saying, the things that people need, messages of comfort to talk back to all that darkness. And so that's one thing a poet can offer.
Mm. Oh, Kim, you grew up in a house of poetry. When did you start feeling that that was your essential world too?
Well, my parents wrote down things we said when we were little, and they made a book for us of our sort of pre-literate utterances, our little morsels of philosophy and curiosity. And my earliest poem, I think, is recorded in that book. So I must have been about 3 or 4 years old. I was walking along and I started chanting, over the bumpity rocks, over the bumpity rocks. Isn't it clever to sing about leather over the bumpity rocks? The delicious music of language before the meaning is the main thing. And I think it was really in high school. I had a wonderful teacher, Scholastica Murty, who, would read these poems. She'd read Whitman and Emily Dickinson and Thoreau and Emerson with the spittle gathering at the corners of her mouth because she was so impetuously forging ahead. She didn't have time to swallow. She really planted the bug for me of loving to write poetry. She got us going.
Well, that attentiveness to what children say is something that you've encouraged others to consider and to note down. I know that you've made many little books out of folded paper over the years, and I know that. Do you still carry the little books in your pocket when you take your walk in the morning?
Because sometimes I think, Naomi, I'm a writer because I don't remember things. And my little notebook is my memory fallback. So that when I sit down, instead of looking at a blank page, I can look through my little notebook and say, oh, yeah, I was thinking about that. I was wondering about that.
Right, right.
I call it stocking the pantry. When you're going to do a poem, it's nice to have a well-stocked pantry of ideas.
Well, you've said over the years, writing a poem can help us slow down, think, wonder, notice. we jot a few words to improve our sense of well-being. It's as if the act of writing is a gift we give ourselves regularly. It becomes ritualized, and then you're right. It's as if you don't have to remember everything because you could go back and find it there. But don't you think it has contributed to your astonishing memory? Because I know in books about members of your own family, 18 years ago, the book you wrote about your father, Early Morning, Remembering My Father, one of the most incredible memoirs I've ever read, Kim from Grey Wolf Press, and then the book you wrote about your brother Brett, 100 Tricks Any Boy Can Do. These books suggest that all along your memory was a better archive, and possibly because you were keeping it tuned up with all the note taking, or
Yeah, I think by writing things down, I give my memory a second chance. But my Aunt Helen said one time, Naomi, when I have a strong emotional experience, I remember forever. And I think memory is not random. The things that stay with us, they are coded access to something deep and important that by writing, we can bring forth. There's a writer here in Portland, Gary Miranda. He says, people who don't read or write poetry are spared the inconvenience of thought. And I don't want to be spared the inconvenience of thought. It's such a pleasure. It's so restorative. And writing really is hands-on thinking.
Right.
The moving pen causes the mind to clarify and focus.
Right. Have you thought about how is it for people who don't by nature pick up reading matter? I've thought about that a lot during the pandemic. What the quarantine would be completely a different kind of loneliness if you were not in the habit of reading things, because then you really would be stuck with yourself and the voices right around you.
Yeah, well, you would be assaulted by other people's opinions on through the media, and you wouldn't have a secure refuge in your own thought to really sift things and know what's real.
And Kim, you believe this power belongs to everyone, right?
Oh,
Anyone.
absolutely, yeah. Wordsworth, somewhere he says, the most important poetry will be uttered by ordinary people at times of great emotion. And we all encounter tragedy, enigma, puzzlement, where the few words we say have to convey everything we have to offer. And so, yeah, I think poetry lives everywhere, certainly in children. My father used to say, it's not when I started writing, it's why did other people stop? Little kids are inventing the language as they go. And we just need to return to that playful readiness to welcome language as it comes to the mind.
I always loved his quote, William Stafford, our beloved poet, lucky conversation transcribed. That's what poetry is. And that just made me feel so ready to be in better tune all the time.
Yeah, and Naomi, I think to have a writing practice is essentially to have a conversation with yourself, to put yourself on the calendar, have an appointment with yourself, with your thoughts, with your questions, with your fears, with your regrets. If you address them with a moving pen, you can transform tragedy into learning.
Yes.
Regret into intention. This is alchemy of the happy life.
And you've thought about those times with writing as invitations to our own minds, to ourselves, not assignments. I remember hearing you tell a group many years ago, I'm going to suggest you write this thing, but let's think of it as an invitation. I'm not giving you an assignment. And that really gave me a wonderful turnabout, because I thought that's what it is, actually. We're inviting ourselves to enter the room of this kind of thinking.
Yeah. And one step beyond that, Naomi, is what I tell my students sometimes. The most interesting writing often results from invitations poorly understood. When people, they go their own way. You
Right,
throw something out there, but you hope they'll abandon that if they get a better idea.
right. And often ourselves as well. Don't you frequently find yourself discovering a path you didn't even know was right there?
Oh,
That
yeah.
you,
Yeah, I go to the page to be surprised, not to
yeah.
be an expert and hammer my poem into obedient meaning. No,
Oh,
I
Kim,
want to be
just
mystified.
yeah, to be mystified, you want to be mystified. You're not going to the page to tell yourself how smart you are and how many things you know and how much your mind has accomplished by figuring all of these puzzles out. You're going there to be uplifted and engaged.
Yeah.
And
Yeah,
so,
the language, my dad has the idea of when you're learning to swim and the big people tell you the water will hold you up if you're moving, if you're moving forward. And you don't believe them. No, I'm going to sink.
yeah.
And he says, well, that's how it is when you're writing. Once you start writing, you will be buoyed up. You will discover things that make you buoyant.
So, Kim, during this quarantine time, uh, you mentioned not seeing friends. Has anything else been particularly hard for you?
Oh, I just like to wander anonymously through the city, eavesdropping. That's been one of my great sources as a writer, just to overhear. Just one quick example. I'm in a cafe one time, and this old man leans over to me and he says, son, you can go down to the variety store and get yourself a little bitty alligator no bigger than a lead pencil and feed him bits of hamburger every day for 100 years and it won't grow tall, but you start giving him whole hamburger patties on a plate and he'll turn into a goddamn monster overnight. And that's just what happened to our federal government. I can't make that up, but to overhear someone say that and to write it in my notebook and then to
Yeah.
pass it on, that's joy.
He saw you as a worthy listener.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah. He said, this guy might like this. I'm telling him. I'm telling
yeah,
him my wisdom.
yeah.
Kim, I've told you that one of my grandson's favorite books, as he testified to you in a video he sent you, is your beautiful book, We Got Here Together, illustrated by the artist Deborah Fraser, which came out some years ago, but is such a wondrous journey into a feeling of nobody's alone. And I'm sure the spirit of that book has been very helpful in my household just because I've read the book so many times this year. But that concept of getting places in community with others, could you talk
Yeah,
about that?
yeah, convergence. We're in a severely divided country, and my question I'm carrying is how can I be a good citizen in a divided country? And I think it's about finding ways to converge through humor, through curiosity, through commitment to the children, what children need, what kind of world the children need, seeking common ground, new ground, the meeting place. And that's what poetry can do. That's what stories can do. That's what music can do. Food, these ways we come together.
In your newest, I think it's the newest one I have of the beautiful book series, We Begin a Better Nation, Poems to Keep Going.
Yeah.
I love that poem, practicing the complex yes. I keep thinking we all need to commit that poem to memory because it's such an anthem uh, for the future.
Yeah.
And
Well, I have it here. Shall I read that poem?
well, it would be wonderful to hear it,
Yeah.
please.
So a friend of mine said, when you're encountering someone that you disagree with, there are two words you must not use: no and but. And so I thought, well, what would be the repertoire of ways to keep the conversation going? So practicing the complex yes. When you disagree with a friend, a stranger, or a foe, how do you reply but not say simply no? For no can stop the conversation or turn it into argument or worse, the conversation that must go on, as a river must, a friendship, a troubled nation. So may we practice the repertoire of the complex yes. Yes, and in what you say, I see yes, and at the same time, yes, and what if? Yes, I hear you. And how about yes, and there's an old story. Yes, and as the old song goes, yes, and as a child told me once, yes, yes, tell me more. I want to understand. And then I want to tell you how it is for me.
Ah, ah, that is a glorious spirit.
So I think you earn the right to speak your mind by listening, by trying to understand the other person. Where did your thoughts come from? You know, tell me all about it. I need to know. You lean forward, your face goes up, your voice goes up. Be an eloquent listener.
You've said, I stay in place and changes come to me. And this year, we've all stayed so much more in place. Could you describe any particular changes you see having come into your mind?
Well, this is strange. One of my experiences in the pandemic is looking at the sky more, looking at the tops of trees, following the flight of a bird. I've spent a lot more time looking at the moon, looking at the stars. When we don't have pandemic, I'm looking down. I'm looking at my phone. I'm looking at my to-do list. And so there's a possible expansiveness and connection to the natural world that I'm hoping, Naomi, will be part of the legacy of this time. I think with the pandemic, we're hitting the reset button. How do we want to do things when we go back into the world? And I think we have a chance for a much simpler, more local life, pleasures that are not injurious to others or the earth.
Yes, yes. And what would you say to someone who says, oh, yes, I spend my ritual time with my page, I write things down, but oh, I can't share anything. I'm just not good enough. I can't send it to a friend. I can't send it.
Well, I have a cruel response. That's very narcissistic. That's very selfish. What has come to you is your contribution to what we all need. Everyone, the potluck will be richer if every dish is there, and not only the triple star gourmet dishes. We need bread from everyone. And so you don't share to show off or to prove anything or to compare.
Right.
You share because what has come through you is available nowhere else. We need it. Don't deprive us.
Well, you're the one that taught me, and I'm sure many others, about how you could take an honorary title like laureate, poet laureate, and think of it simply in terms of service. It's giving you an opportunity to be of service to others, but also to the language that you trust in. Thank you for having that attitude, Kim, because it really helps. It helps to have that way of looking.
Yeah, my predecessor, Elizabeth Woody, who was the poet laureate before me in Oregon, she said in her last reading as poet laureate, the more I do poetry, the less it's about what the poem is, and the more about who the poem serves. And that really became my motto as poet laureate, who the poem serves. How could this help?
Wow. And I heard Elizabeth Woody so many years ago in the woods in Oregon urge an audience to write down 3 lines minimum every day.
Yeah.
And I remember her conviction about those 3 lines. If you wrote 3 lines every day, you'd have 90 at the end of a month. And just think, some days you might want to write 6 or 12. And where could that take you? The abundance of possibility. How great.
Yes. Yeah. Elizabeth's a hero of mine.
She's a hero of mine, and you're a hero of mine. And I have to say, Kim, your energy has always been something that I treasure in the world. I have seen you in action in my own city, in Texas, conduct 9 varying age workshops within a single day, something which would daunt most writers.
I
They would
lost my
say,
voice by the end of the day, but what a glorious day that was.
it was a great day. And maybe some of them were readings, some of them were workshop style, but you carried on as if each one was the first thing you had done. And
I remember when we started that day, so we were going to have 200 kids an hour for 3 hours. And this little kid in the front row said, "I ain't writing." I said, "Oh, great. Okay. It's a free country, you know." But pretty soon he came up to me and he said, "How do you spell scarred?" I said, "I think it has 2 R's." And so then he wanted to read his poem at the end. "I was scarred for life by a policeman's bullet." Said, "Oh my God, go man, go." So, you can try not to write poetry, but eventually you have to surrender and say your piece.
Uh, well, your energy shared through the quarantine tapes today is something that will bless all listeners. I know that. And I feel that what you give us all is greater confidence in our own possibility. And you would say that that's what the life with writing has given you, right?
I think so. Yeah, words are human oxygen. It's what we exchange with each other. And can I end with a poem for you, Naomi? This is the title poem of my next book that I wrote at Fish Trap when we were there together. It's called "Our Singer Come From Afar," for Naomi. Be our wren or warbler, lit in willow, swaying with your tender weight of songs, sipping the sky to tell us hard things from far away, you freighted for our understanding and comfort. Sing the mysterious harmony of news and blessing, hurt and healing, offered with head high, eye bright, until with a friendly shrug you flit away and leave us strangely younger. That's what you do to me with your poems, Naomi.
Kim, that's so beloved. That's such a beautiful poem. Thank you for inspiring me and inspiring countless people to believe in their own voices and go to their pages with gusto. And Kim Stafford, if anyone has not read your work, I just urge them to find it because it will befriend them in a way that will mean everything.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you, Kim.
I want everyone to write a poem for someone who needs a poem. Not to publish in a magazine, but think of someone in your life who needs a poem and then write one and give it to them. That's my invitation.
Perfect way to end. Thank you. We send that out. Let's all do it. Thank you, Kim Stafford. Love to your great state of Oregon. And thank you from Paul Holdengraber, the Quarantine Tapes, and myself for this lovely conversation.
Love to all. Thank you.
Thank you.
To support this show and Dublab's progressive programming, go to dublab.com/support.